Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford Beach Volleyball, and you're watching or listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
I'm Alana Rennie of University of Arizona Beach Volleyball, and you're watching or listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
Hi, I'm Kate Privet of TCU Beach Volleyball, and you're watching or listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
You tapped or clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on Mike.
Good day, everyone. And after a spring break hiatus, we are back for College Volleyball Weekly Beach Top 20. And with me on screen, as always, I'm going to start bottom this time, at least on my end, from TCU, Kate Privet. Upper right for me is Alana Rennie of Arizona. And of course, upper left, Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford. Ladies, good to see you again. And obviously 2 weeks have transpired. And as always, a lot of news, but because I'm a male, I'm short memory. And I lost what happened in week 5. I only can remember what happened in week 6. So anything happened in the last 2 weeks that caught your guys' eyes? And let's start with you, Alana.
I think just a lot of the mix around, and you have every team that kind of has the typical, oh yeah, they beat that team, like that was expected, but there's just a lot of move around, I think, within the mid of the rankings, and I think it's really interesting to see. I also can't remember a lot of specifics, but I think just lots of movements in the overall rankings and a lot of competitiveness between different teams beating each other, and it's sort of the March Madness right now of beach volleyball in the middle of the season right now. Is just kind of like, you never know who can beat who and change things up a bit.
Yeah, March Madness, the April anxiety, because everyone's trying to get the higher seed in the conference tournament and NCAAs. Let's jump over to Kate of TCU.
I would say something that stuck out to me this week is UNF sweeping Pepperdine. I thought that was really cool. UNF is they've always been a scrappy team. I played them a lot at Florida State. But seeing them beat Pepperdine, I feel like it showed that, they're a team that can compete with other ranked teams, and they beat Stetson too, and FGCU. So they did really well, and they can compete with a lot of great teams. So UNF I have to give a shout out to them this week.
Good call. Charlie.
Yeah, I think honestly, I might be a little bit lacking in my long-term memory as well, Rob, similar to you. I don't remember much of week 5, and that might also be because of a lot of quarter system schools, ourselves, like myself included. Here at Stanford, a lot of us were idle due to it being finals week in week 5 for us. So with that, with a lot of teams being idle, I don't have a huge memory of what was going on that week. But this past week in week 6, I feel like seeing a lot of people out on spring break, I feel like there was a little bit of that chaos that came with just so many games and so many really exciting tournaments occurring. I would agree with Kate on that. UNF had just this spectacular performance in week 6, and I'm excited. I think that we play them not this weekend, but next weekend when we go out to LSU. And so I'm really excited to face up against them because they're going to be a really fun team to play. And in general, I think that as we're nearing this end of season, we're starting to see a little bit of lineup solidifying, but also kind of lineup mixing at the same time, of where we're starting to see teams change up with their original lineups we're looking like, and starting to gear up for postseason, and like you were saying, get those higher seeds. And so I don't know, I think that it was a fun weekend. I had my eyes, even though I wasn't there, I still had my eyes on East versus West, and I'm excited to talk about it more as we keep on going.
Well, before we jump into our topics, which includes East West, we got to go for the most obvious one. Sandy Frogs still perch atop both polls, and they're getting it done, obviously, with Danny and Tanya, 21-1 at the ones, amazing record. Maria Gonzalez, Haley Hamlet, 11-1 at the threes. Haley Brockett and Rochelle Scott, 14-0 at fives. And our own Kate Privet, 22-2 when she's on the court at the 2s, 3s, and 4s, because they move her up and down the scales. What's solidifying the lineup for the Sandy Frogs, even though you're shifting around, technically playing at different spots, Kate?
I would say just having different partners. We're trying a few different partners and trying to figure out what works best. And it's good to see us play with people we don't normally play with. So our coaches are trying to do that in some of the games too. So I feel like our lineup will start to solidify a little bit more these next few weeks as we enter the postseason.
Now, for the other athletes on the screen, I mean, is it a difficult transition, or is this okay to go through the season? I mean, obviously it varies from squad to squad, but how about from your perspective, Alana?
Of moving partnerships?
Yeah. At this,
Yeah,
particularly past the halfway point, but if we're knocking off the NCAA tournament, we're actually like 2/3 away done with season.
Yeah, so I think our team is pretty used to it. Personally, we mix up partners every single day in practice, whether they've been our partner in the games and not. I think it's a good strategy, but I think it does help sometimes to work with your partner if you've been more consistent with someone else, to like build that connection and just like a natural flow of the game with each other, so you can like learn how each other plays and how each other maybe likes the set, or like there's different connections that you can build. But I think if you're able to mix it up throughout the season, then that's good. In case of injury or illness or just anything that happens, then everyone's comfortable playing with other people.
Yeah. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I think Alana said it really well there. And I also think looking at, I don't know, I think that looking from a lot of different perspectives, like I think TCU's strength, a lot of their strength has come like from that mixing, but also they come in like very solid in their early flights, and it almost like releases the pressure valve off for some of the later flights that might get a little bit like more intense down to the wire, but then it's like they get the job done. You look at like Danny and Tanya, they're 21-1 at the ones like you had mentioned, but then also Haley and Rochelle at fives are 14-0. Like those are two like on the far ends of the spectrum of the lineup, and they're both getting the job done. So I think that TCU is doing a great job there. But then you look at other lineups that are really working, or other schools that are really doing great things, and you see UCLA, they're really consistently mixing up their lineup. I know we're going through lineup mixing, and I think it's tough in the moment, like to think about of like, hey, we got to change up the mojo of like a partnership that you might have consistently been working with for weeks. But also at the same time, I think the nature of beach volleyball is that there's kind of a constant change between partnerships. And so if we're not able to adjust now, what does that look like pre and post college for us? Because when we were all juniors, we all played with different partners here and there. I mean, Kate and I, back in the day, we played together when we were about 16 years old. And now we're playing for different schools. And I think that there's like this friendly familiarity with constantly being comfortable with change. And so I think the strongest schools are seeing that their players are having a lot of comfort with a lot of changes.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually looking because I know that Atlanta's having a pretty kicking season right now. 17-3, but you've been with Grace Cook the entire time. So, I mean, obviously the familiarity is great for you. And I think you're probably the leading squad at the threes, or at least winning percentage wise for Arizona at this point.
Yeah, I think so. And Grace and I actually played at the same club in juniors. So kind of bringing it back to the juniors days with that pairing, but yeah, it's fun.
So let's look at the tail end of the poll here. I'm looking at both the AVCA and the collegebeachvolleyball.com poll, and they're pretty similar in that the only difference is in one of them, Arizona's dropped out. Arizona's tied at 20, but it's any variation between Pepperdine, Stetson, UNF, Tulane, and we'll call South Carolina there at the 16th spot. Lot of movement there, and I feel like there's only a few votes, 2, 3 at most, that can be the decider when it comes to those at-large bids at the tail end, because you're looking at 17 of the top teams. You know, the automatics are 9, and then you're looking at 7 more that could be punching in for that last at-large bid. But what kind of competition should we expect to see in the tail end here with the teams that are looking for that bubble entry in? And we'll start with you, Charlie.
I think there is that added pressure for a lot of teams because of the fact that everybody is vying for these 8 at-large spots, as opposed to, I mean, everybody's also vying for a conference bid, but I think that the eyes are going on those at-large spots at the end of the day, because we have a lot of powerhouse conferences. I mean, you look at CCSA, you look at Pac-12, those are 2 historic conferences, Conference USA, a 3rd historic conference that obviously sends like more than 1 pair to NCAAs, usually 3, maybe even 4 pairs, depending on the year. And so will those conferences swoop up all the at-large bids again? Will there be more mixing? I think that like the eyes are on this postseason for who's going to be able to swoop up the end of those bids. I mean, last year we saw, I feel like I want to say it was Cal Poly were the ones who ended up winning Big West, and that was kind of their ticket, that they punched their ticket in with the conference bid, and then that ended up knocking out Long Beach State in the end of it, because I was pretty confident that we were going to see Long Beach State at Gulf Shores last year, and we didn't. And I still stand by the fact that I think that they might have gotten robbed a little bit, but at the end of the day, they didn't perform in their conference tournament. That last pressure was on, and Cal Poly performed. So therefore, Cal Poly executed, and they got the bid instead of Long Beach State. And as a result, I mean, again, like the conference pressure kind of comes, and then the outside, like all teams are looking to win the games that they're supposed to and not lose any that they aren't supposed to. So
let's jump over to Kate. Thoughts on that tail end of the poll, those teams in that last, last punch to get in.
I think it's hard to judge that poll because none of the teams, like Arizona doesn't get to play some of these other teams, so it's hard to really judge who should be where. Like Arizona wouldn't get to play UNF, or necessarily none of them all get to play each other, so it's hard to get a clear ranking. So I think it's just going to come down to these last few weeks, which teams are able to get big wins and hopefully get some upsets. And I feel like to get those poll spots at the 18, 19, 20, you have to have some upsets of higher ranked teams in order to really get in there and solidify your position. So I'd say that's probably the hardest part of being in that spot. You have to upset some teams in order to solidify your position.
Yeah. And then Alana, you're actually in it right now. You don't have to reveal what's exactly going on in your locker room, but you're right there experiencing, okay, this is where we're at, and this is what has to happen. What's your take?
Yeah, I totally agree with Kate. Like, it's unfortunate that we don't get to play these teams that we're basically up against in the rankings. Because I would love to go head to head with them and, see who can come out on top and really like prove those rankings to be true. But it is important for us, it's a dogfight every single week in order to prove our ranking and our belonging in the top 20 by just beating who we're supposed to be and not losing to who we're not supposed to lose to. So I think it's just really important. Every single match is important when it comes to rankings. And even though we don't get to play those teams that we are in line with, I guess, except looking at the top 5 teams in the bottom of the rankings, we've played Pepperdine, beat them, but they're coming up with some more impressive wins than we have recently. So like looking at it like that, like they're probably just slightly ahead of us, but with this competition schedule upcoming, we should hopefully get back in there, but we got some stuff to prove. So
yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Well, the other news item, or one of the bullet points I was going to focus on, was the Hawaiian Punch pair of Brooke Van Sickle and Kaylee Glago. I was shocked when I was looking at the MoVR ratings of the players. I thought, oh, sure, it's got to be Danny and Tanya at the top because they've only got one loss. They've been beating teams pretty handily, but it's Brooke Van Sickle and Kaylee Glago. Have you guys seen them play, and what are your thoughts on their style of play and their success so far? And let's start with you, Alana.
I have not seen them play this year. We actually go to Hawaii next week, and we'll play them twice over the weekend. And so I'm really excited to, even though I did play Brooke Van Sickle last year, she's always been really impressive and just has such a heavy arm. And it's just, I feel like she seems like an easy person to play with. So I feel like she's able to lift up her partners and make them better as a whole. But no, I'm excited to see them play next week.
Yep. How about you, Kate?
I don't think I've ever seen that pair play. But I've heard Brooke Van Sickle is just a great player. Like Elena said, a super heavy arm. She can get up and really hit the ball. So I hope I get to see them at some point, but maybe nationals would be the only time, but because we won't be seeing each other, but I've heard really good things about them.
All right, then let's close out with Charlie, which I know has had experienced her not only as an opponent, but as a teammate.
Yes, no, I know Brooke fairly well. I know this team decently well. with more familiarity with Brooke than with Kaylee, with the factor of Brooke was my partner for USA camp a couple years ago. And so I've experienced firsthand from being side by side with her and playing against her just how hard she hits. I think that she made me laugh with how high she bounced a ball when we played against each other this year. But Brooke was paired up with Jamie Santer at the beginning of season, so I didn't actually get to see this pair play at the beginning of season. I actually was going to say, Rob, like to your note, I was a little bit surprised looking at the top of the mover rankings with seeing that Brooke and Kaylee were at the top above Danny and Tanya. Not anything against Brooke and Kaylee. They're a phenomenal pair. I saw them a lot in fall as well. And they were just really solid in fall. Like they had an unfortunate early end in the Huntsville Pairs Championship tournament, but they're a really incredible pair and they've got a lot of consistency together. Brooke has the wisdom of having a couple years beyond her original 4 years, and she's just got a lot of wisdom to her game. She started out on the indoor side and then had a couple extra years to add on for beach with a couple of red shirts plus a COVID shirt. And Kaylee's got this experience that kind of like extends beyond her years. Like she almost seems like a grad student, even though she isn't. And they both just together, they flow really nicely. I think like you pair like Kaylee's finesse with Brooke's power and it just works very well. But again, they don't have as many games as some of these other ones pairs together. So I was a little bit surprised to see them at top of mover over Danny and Tanya.
Yeah, all good calls. I wanted to talk about one of the teams that's been moving up, and Tulane. And I don't know a whole bunch about it because not a whole lot of media, but they did upset number 11 Washington 3-2, but they did lose to number 9 Cal 3-2. So I guess the voters are looking, hey, that's a great win, but that's a good loss if there's a good loss. Do any of you know a whole bunch about Tulane? No. Okay, let's go. Charlie does know.
Well, I was actually going to say, we just played them today. So I got to experience Tulane firsthand. They're really great competitors. We ended up edging ahead of them 4-1 today. But Tulane's super scrappy. They took 2 of our pairs to 3. They beat one of our other pairs and they did not go down without a fight. So I was very impressed by Tulane's fight. That's my first time I want to say that I've ever played against Tulane or seen their matchup. I have there's some familiar faces that I know from juniors that are on the team, and they had a couple great transfers with Molly Eberton coming from USC. She's paired up with a fellow. She's originally from the Bay Area and is now paired up with a fellow Bay Area native, Kendall Peters. They're playing the ones and they're doing some pretty good things. And honestly, in general, Tulane is a very scrappy team and they don't let a lot of points go easy. And so I could see why they'd be a team that's causes some pretty scrappy upsets. I mean, going 3-2 with Cal is it sucks to lose, but that's a really good game as well. And then beating UW, who's a phenomenal team this season, beating them 3-2 is a huge win. So, I don't know where Tulane should fall in the rankings, but it might need to be a little bit higher than they are right now.
Yeah. Well, the other team that was the big mover this week was FIU, and their marquee win was against number 8 Hawaii. But they had losses to number 2 USC, number 4 UCLA, number 7 LMU, number 10 Stanford, and number 12 Long Beach State. So any of you guys know a whole bunch about FIU? I saw them for the first time in person. I was impressed. But you guys compete against them and have seen probably their players over your entire career, since you guys are all, for lack of a better, upper class people. So, who wants to take a stab at FIU?
I can. We've already played them twice this season, and one of the times we played them, it was 3-2. It was really close. They're always a good team. She changes the lineup pretty much every single game, so it's really hard to know what you're going to get. But obviously the players are pretty well at adapting to the lineup changes, and that's really awesome that they pulled out a win against Hawaii. And they're a team you always have to watch out for. I feel like they get sneaky. They have some sneaky upsets every year. One year at FSU, they upset us and at home, and I remember that was a big deal, and that was a really good upset for them. So I feel like they're a team that you always have to keep your foot on the gas when you're playing against them.
Yep. Anyone else want to add into the FIU assessment?
I think just adding from our matchup against them this last week, that was the first time, similar to how this was the first time that we'd ever played against Tulane. This is the first time that we've ever matched up against FIU in my career here at Stanford. And I mean, they were good competitors. I think we played the wind a little bit stronger than they did. And so again, we were able to take a pretty solid win against them, but they didn't go down without a fight. I mean, they took us 4-1. They battled on every court. And I mean, I don't know. I think FIU, like Kate was saying, like, it was like I had to scout like 3 different teams when we were watching film and it was like a combo of like 3 different pairs is who we ended up matching up against. Like, you never really know what to expect out of their lineup. And almost like, it's like looking at film, like it's almost like it's not totally valuable unless you have some sort of semblance and like get lucky with your scout. Because they're mixing it up a lot, and all of their players have a lot of comfort. They've got a lot of internationals and they bring a lot of talent from there.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, one of the things I did enjoy about this last week was seeing Giada Bianchi play with Rachel Mancinelli against you and Maya Harvey at the twos. And Giada was a really physical blocker. She has a strong arm. I mean, when she hits, she's getting a good pop off of it. But seeing you go up against her at the net was, I'm like, okay, I'm being objective here. I'm evaluating players and teams, but Charlie's on the other side. So
it was fun. Again, huge wind game. And my serve ended up edging ahead of them a couple more times than I think they would have liked. And Giada was an amazing blocker. I was very impressed. There were not a lot of balls that she let get past her. And luckily we were really focused on covering that game, because if we weren't focused on covering, I don't think we would have been able to have put as many balls away as we ended up doing, because she was patrolling the net very well.
Yeah, and they do have some other pieces, and that's one team that I wouldn't want to see in the NCAA tournament, because they have upset potential written all over them. So just because they're so big and physical, I was surprised they had some other teams on the bench or rooting them on, like, okay, she's 6'3", she's 6'4", oh, she's got to at least be 6'5". So I'm wondering what they're going to come out with come the end of the postseason here with conference tournament play, and the NCAAs, assuming they get in. Let's jump into our top 10 teams here. And, the topic sent out was Florida State sizzle. Who wants to take the first stab at Florida State, what they saw from these last week or 2 weeks of the Seminoles? Evan's frozen there.
Oh, I can do it.
Oh, that's right. Double agent.
Yeah, they look good. They upset UCLA. We saw that they had a tight loss to USC. So I thought I was watching the scores of that USC game. I thought that they had it. From the scores, it looked like they had USC, but USC snuck back in and won 3-2, which is a good loss and a good learning experience. And then, they also did well. I think, did we talk about the Gulf Shores tournament yet?
We did not. We skipped it.
They also did well at the Gulf Shores tournament. I think they lost, or they
You're
lost.
referring to the March to May, that one?
The March to May. They lost to UCLA 3-2 that tournament. So they've had a lot of tight games, but they seem to be playing really well. They have a different lineup from when we played them. So, they look good though.
Anyone else want to chime in?
I couldn't agree more. I was watching those scores of East versus West, and I totally forgot that March to May was during week 5. Like, that was one that like went over my head in memory there. But looking at scores from this last week, and I was definitely watching the live stats pretty intently from the airport of the USC FSU and the UCLA FSU games. And that's a huge win over UCLA. That's kind of on home sand. And so that was a huge one for FSU. I also, Kate, thought that FSU was going to edge ahead of USC. Like, I really thought that they had that. And so USC pulled a late comeback win, and that was huge for USC, but also really awesome battle out of FSU. And so, I mean, that little shuffling of the top 4 was like a well understood shuffle of the top 4, just because of the fact that FSU came out guns a-blazing this weekend.
Yeah. Alana, anything else to add there?
Not really. I think you guys kind of nailed it. I also am I'm sort of out of the loop a little bit when it comes to watching games like this. I just have a lot going on, but I know recently I've talked about our team posting in the group chat, score updates and stuff. And this was definitely one of them. We kept posting just texting in the group chat the updates of each score and just wondering who was going to take it. And, FSU fell just short to USC, but, it just shows you how good the top couple teams are.
Yeah. So we'll kind of jump back and forth here because I was looking at the top 5-ish, top 10-ish, but with East meets West, you had 8 teams, 4 from the West, 4 from the East. And I was on the MC host mic for that one. And I'll tell you, it was intense because the way they had it scheduled, it was a staggered start, 3 courts for one pool, 3 for the other. And they're going 2 4s in the exhibition and the 1 3 5s. Well, UCLA was paired up against LSU, USC, and Florida State. And at the end of each one, there are 1-1. And as I'm calling the scores as a second wave of flights begin, it's like 2-1, 2-2. Going down to court number 1, dual deciding point. Oh, we're on dual clinching point number 5, and it was just neck and neck. It could have fallen either way, but you just see the points dropping so fast. It's made me realize how evenly matched all the top 5, we'll say even up to the top 7 were. And it could have gone either way because there were upsets that weekend. And, obviously Florida State with a big win over UCLA. And then you had Hawaii being upset by FIU. I mean, it just was craziness. And FIU was at the time 16. So let's talk about the talent there in that top 16, and particularly at the East meets West. What were you guys seeing, and what were your observations based on the results and the scores, and anything about the pairs that you saw that were happening based on your standpoint? So who feels comfortable jumping in right off the bat there?
I can start.
All right.
I think, just literally anything can happen. I think I love those big tournaments and seeing what happens and who takes the cake on some of those games, and everything is a nail biter, which makes beach volleyball just so much more fun to watch and to follow. And I think that also helps grow the sport just in general, knowing how competitive it is. But I did want to give a shout out to the Ferrari twins of Georgia State as they beat USC's ones and UCLA's ones. Those are really good teams. And I think they beat both of them, almost very similar scores in all the games. But I think both of the games came down to the third set and they took them 15-13. So I think seeing those, they're always a fun pair to watch. Really fiery players, and you can kind of just know that they're sisters watching them play. So they're very fun to watch, but it's fun to see the some of the top pairs in general, not just teams, but pairs get mixed up a little bit in the shuffle.
Well, to your point, Alana, I'll have to say, if you look at the scoring patterns of their wins, they lost the first set both times, 21-13. They must have yelled at each other at that intermission because they ended up taking the second set 21-17 or 21-18, and they yelled at each other some more and pushed each other to the top. 15-13 wins in the third set against both those teams. So the sister combo did work for Georgia State, but I'll have to say it was so entertaining to watch the few points I could, being I was working so many courts, because they're 5-4, 5-5 on a good hair day, and you see them going up the block, pull, or they'll go up and block, getting maybe their forearm above the net, and still psyching teams out. They can get the dig and run a good transition play. So they cover a lot of court for the height challenge that they have when it comes to going up against bigger teams. So Charlie, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I think looking at it, I mean, Elena, I was going to totally mention the Ferrari twins too, because that's so impressive. And especially, we had kind of talked about this all before, is that their first day at East versus West was not their strongest of days. They went 0-2, 0-4. They didn't pick up a set against LMU or Hawaii, but then they turned it around and beat 2 pairs that I think normally we might have expected that to almost like be a flip, because historically USC and UCLA have some powerhouse ones pairs, and they this year still have some powerhouse ones pairs. So those are huge wins to pick up for the Ferrari twins. But looking at the East versus West more specifically, I was looking at kind of this like upset triangle between FIU, Hawaii, and LSU. Because I think something that we've almost like skipped over is the fact that yes, FIU upset Hawaii, but Hawaii upset LSU. And that was a huge upset. And I know that like Lana was saying about like group chats blowing up, my group chat was for sure blowing up with our team when that Hawaii upset of LSU happened, especially because it was immediately following Hawaii getting upset by FIU. And it's like, we had just come from playing FIU the day before. And so all of us were kind of like, whoa, this is something that's absolutely crazy that's going on. And having that kind of upset triangle, I was almost surprised to kind of like see the like rankings come out and see that there wasn't that much change. But then again, you look and it's like LSU beat LMU at number 7. So can they drop below Hawaii because LMU has beat Hawaii? Like it's kind of that whole like dance in the layout and in the format of the rankings, because it's like these upsets have happened, but at the end of the day, it goes back to the postseason and it goes back to the arguments that coaches propose for why they deserve a wild card bid. And it's like these teams deserve wild card bids for XYZ, and a lot of them come to these upsets of these top 5 to top 10 schools.
Yeah. Kate, did you have something to add on there? I saw you rattling your screen, your quadrant here. So
I was also going to talk about the LSU Hawaii. I think that was a really good win for Hawaii over LSU. LSU is always a strong team, and they were ranked higher. Like Charlie said, it's hard to make movements when the LSU beats LMU. So it doesn't right now. The rankings don't matter. They'll matter more at the end. So we'll see how they end up when it matters.
Well, knowing a Russell Brock coach team, it's like you have a bunch of like no names coming out on the court, yet he's able to coach them up to this top 8 level, which is insane, because I know some of those girls are purely indoor and just maybe playing less than 9 months on the sand, like someone named Taryn Cloth, who's in second in the race for an Olympic qualification right now. They're super gifted, and what he's doing there at LSU is a huge statement on the development of the players at that program. Gosh, I didn't know where to go from there because there was just so much going on that weekend. One of the pairs that did stick out for me, and the only reason why is because the way I had to position myself was I had to sit between the 1 and 3 pairs going on at the same time to call both matches. But Jordan Polo and Anna Long. And Anna Long was on my preseason watch list. And my gosh, she was phenomenal, or both were really phenomenal. I know Charlie's had experience with Jordan when she was at Cal, but I know, Kate, you had some experience with her last year. And Atlanta, I know you played against her at least a couple times. I think she was in the 2s and 3s at one point. I'm trying to remember, go off the top of my head, but they ended up getting CCSA Pair of the Week, as a matter of fact. So what do you guys know about Jordan Polo and Anna Long? I want to start with you, Kate.
I know a lot about Jordan and Anna. I actually played with Anna last year, and she's such a great athlete. She's tall and she's really long, but she's also super fast, jumps really high. So it's hard when you play a blocker that's that physical too. And she was a freshman last year. I feel like she's gotten even better this year, just getting more college experience. Her and Jordan they also played together last year some, so it's probably cool for them to keep that partnership going a little bit. They have a lot of experience together, but Jordan's such a smart defender. She reads the court super well, and Anna's a big blocker, so they complement each other really nicely, and they're definitely a pair to watch out for.
All right, Atlanta, any thoughts on that pair, the CCSA Pair of the Week from Florida State?
Yeah, I played Jordan in Alabama in the fall with Maddie Anderson, and I think she's just a really consistent player. She knows the court, sees the court really well, has great volleyball IQ, is really impressive. And I haven't seen her much this year since Alabama, but obviously she's doing good and seems to have good connection and just connection with her partner Anna, that I've never played against her or seen her, but they seem to be doing good.
Yep. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I know Jordan very well from Berkeley, from playing against her a lot when she was at Berkeley, playing against her a little bit in juniors. We've tried to get on the same side of the net a couple of times, with both of us going back and forth with having some health concerns that have prevented us, unfortunately, from last minute cancellations. But I have nothing but respect for her as a player. She's an incredible player, and she's added so much depth. That FSU already had depth, but she's also added even more depth to their lineup and their program. And the only experience that I have of watching Anna is actually watching Anna with you, Kate, last year. And so I am very impressed by this pair. I think that again, it's like that really cool pairing of like a very like steady, like consistent player with Jordan and seeing like a very aggressive, like dynamic player with Anna. And so, I mean, those partnerships, you see like a lot of these conference pair of the weeks and a lot of the best teams in the nation are really that like steady combined with a really dynamic. And it's a nice pair. It's a nice little yin and yang kind of combo.
Look at you, yin and yang, all philosophical now. Well, one team that's flown under the radar, and I'm surprised none of us have said anything about this team, but UCLA's 4 pairs of Rileigh Powers and Haley Hallgren, they are 23-0 right now. They went 4-0 on the weekend. And I'm like, how did we not see this? I mean, they've been so strong. And Haley Hallgren obviously she came back from a pretty major procedure. She's lost half a lung, and she's come back from playing indoor at Michigan, but she has got so much power on her jump serve and is such a big hitter. Yeah, I didn't see that in her when she's at USC playing with Haley Harward, but man, that year and a half, it made a big difference because she is so strong. But I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on both of those athletes. And let's start with you, Alana.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they have gone under the radar, probably because they're at the fours pair. I think, we know that every pair matters, but unfortunately, the lower the pair, the less media time, I guess, is what I'll say. But, we know that both of these people have always been good and consistent, and props to Haley Hallgren for coming back after, her procedure and her health concerns and stuff, and also props to her from going to her old rival school. So takes a lot to do that. I don't think I could ever do that, but and Rileigh's always been consistent in the lower pairs. It's good to have that consistency that you can rely on as a team member. So I think having a good lower seeded pair on your team is really nice just for everyone, because they're reliable, and when they play, they're going to do great things, and they're fun to watch too.
Yeah. How about you, Kate? Thoughts on Rileigh Powers and Haley Hallgren?
I agree. They have flown under the radar, but obviously they're undefeated and they've beat a lot of great teams. So it's really cool. UCLA probably really likes having a pair that they can count on pretty much up to this point every single time. So yeah, that's an awesome pair. I'm excited to keep watching them throughout the season, see if they remain undefeated. That's hard to do. I think the last team that did that was Kristen and Taryn. So hey, they're on the right track. Who knows what can happen?
Well, here's another mind-blowing stat. Rileigh Powers has only dropped 4 sets this season.
Wow.
Because I know she's been paired with Natalie Miskowski in one duel, but the rest of the way it's been with Haley. So that's amazing. But Charlie, thoughts on that pair?
No, again, I mean, I'll echo, they are way underrated, and I can't believe that they've gone so underrated because UCLA has been at such the forefront of a lot of discussion, and they're phenomenal. I mean, I love Rileigh. She just brings this really cool energy to the court. I've practiced and trained with her a bunch. She's just an incredible human being on top of being an incredible volleyball player. And I think that looking at all the good that she brings and kind of like her wisdom of the UCLA game, bringing it to Haley, who's while Haley's a very experienced volleyball player and beach volleyball player, she's still new to UCLA and also new to coming back with her new lungs, with her new post indoor career, and just they run a different system than USC. And I think that UCLA versus USC, you see a lot of power out of USC, and you see a lot of the very finessed game out of UCLA. And so I think Rileigh bringing kind of that wisdom into Haley's just absolute dynamicism that comes out of her serve and out of her power. I think that they harness just a lot of good in each other. I got to see them. I think they were at 5s when we played against them in Hawaii, and we'll get a chance to see UCLA on Friday. And so I'm hopeful that maybe my 4s will be able to do some damage against them. But at the same time, they're doing incredible things, and clearly they're a pretty solid staple for that UCLA lineup.
Yeah, all good calls. The other pair that really stuck out this weekend for USC was at the 3s, Maddie White and Maddie Shields, and then the Norses at the 2s, who ended up getting, I believe, the AVCA pair of the week and Pac-12 pair of the week. Is that right?
AVCA is Ainsley Raydell and
sorry.
Ashley Delgado.
Yeah, I didn't want to steal the props from them. That's another good pair, even though they're your sworn enemies when you're on the court, right, Charlie?
Absolutely, but they're amazing.
The school that shall not be named is how you're supposed to refer to that as a Stanford student. Well, while we're on that, let's look at this. So the A-Sun pair of the week, Chantel McMillan, Hayden Wooldridge of North Florida Ospreys. Is that right? Is that the mascot for UNF? Love it. Big West, Brooke Van Sickle, Kaylee Glago, Hawaii. CCS pair, CCSA, obviously, Anna Long and Jordan Pohl of FSU. Conference USA, Kendall Peters, Molly Eberton from Tulane. There you go. Ohio Valley, Cambry Lucas and Olivia O'Keefe of UT Martin. Pac-12 were the Norris twins. WCC, Chloe Hooker and Isabel Reffel of LMU. Southland, Maddie Butters and Allison Stanfill of Houston Christian or HCU. And the Sun Belt was Bree Haggerty and Ashley Thompson of UNC Wilmington. I wanted to jump into what we're going to be watching this week. And I know what Charlie and Alana are going to be watching. And I'm going to have you guys go first because you guys could end up like, are you guys, I didn't get a look of the whole, I guess, pools, who's going to be there, or the bracket of who's going to be at Pac-12 North this weekend. So why don't you start, Charlie, since you're hosting, and then Alana can chirp in after that.
9 a.m. Friday morning, I will be seeing Alana up close and personal. We match up against U of A at 9 a.m. on Friday morning at Stanford. I'm excited because we're using like two different pieces of our facilities. We're using our main stadium as well as one of our side facilities. That's like the original Stanford beach volleyball facility. That's older and less used, but it's all like tuned up for this Pac-12 North tournament. And we're really excited. All the Pac-12 schools will be around. We have 4 matchups. I think everybody has 4 matchups. So we don't see, I think it's the 4 that you didn't match up against in the South tournament, you match up against in this North tournament here. And so I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a very fun week. We've got beach volleyball good vibes are in the air for Stanford, like just as a community. And so I'm excited that we get to host. It's a good like queue up because we'll be hosting the Pac-12 championship tournament as well this year. I'm excited to see Alana. Not necessarily excited for us to match up against each other, but excited to see you as always. And I think it'll just be a weekend of really good beach volleyball.
Well, so, one of the pieces of information I didn't know about was, so you're matching up against the 4 teams that you didn't play against in the Pac-12 South. Who are those 4 that Stanford's going up against?
We will be matching up against U of A and UCLA on Friday. And then we will be matching up against Oregon and Cal on Saturday. So another rivalry.
That Cal match is going to be interesting.
That's going to be a big one for us for sure.
Yeah.
We're looking for a little bit of a revenge moment. We get them on our home soil this time. They got us on their home soil this year. So hopefully we can do the same to them, but it's going to be a very good matchup and it's going to be a very good cap off to the weekend for sure.
All right, Alana. So are you facing off against different teams? And I like I said, I didn't know that this was how the Pac-12 conference tournament or Pac-12 North and South worked, but go ahead.
Yeah. So Pac-12 South, we only played 3 teams, 3 teams. It would have been 4 if we played ASU, but we usually just play them midweek or on each other's senior nights is usually how it goes. But this weekend we are playing Utah, Stanford, USC, and UCLA. So big games. We're really excited to play some higher ranked teams and try and get our ranking back for sure. And then, Utah is definitely coming in. They have a really good ones pair and they're getting a lot deeper throughout the seasons. And so really excited to play them. We call your little separate area of courts the Dust Bowl.
We called them the bowl. We call them
the bowl. All right.
But it's like it's by the Graduate School of Business, so we call them like GSB bowl courts.
I think we played there last year too. So we had a couple matches in those courts as well. So, but excited.
So with that, this weekend here, I should put Kate on the spot and have her pick who's going to win between Stanford and Arizona, but I'm not going to do that. That's what we do in my other podcast with the men's. All the coaches play each other like, hey, Rob's team's going to lose this week.
That's funny. That's funny.
So Kate, I know that you're not part of the Pac-12 North this weekend, but what are you going to be watching this weekend or this week?
I'm gonna be watching the Pac-12 North. I think that sounds like the tournament with the most excitement and the most teams that there could be upsets and close matches. You know, we're seeing Cal. I'm excited to see Cal and Stanford again. I'm excited to see Arizona get to play USC and UCLA and play Stanford. Like Elena said, that could be another room for upsets, and I'm just excited to follow that tournament. There will be a lot of good matchups.
Well, I'm going to call yours out here. Unconquered Invitational, Southern Miss, Florida State. Oh no, actually not your former one, your former school. Sorry, TCU fans, but that one has FSU, LSU, LMU, and Florida Atlantic coming off of a idle week. It's a big week to make moves for FAU, but LSU, FSU coming off this East meets West. God, I had a hard time doing that this weekend too. I expect there's going to be a pretty good brawl between those two teams again, because LSU is obviously getting better. Florida State is strong, but can't sleep on those Sandy Tigers. And then the other one that's kind of on the tier or the back end of the polls are going to be Georgia State Digging Duels is what it's called. South Carolina, UAB, Stetson, Georgia State, and UT Martin. Obviously, they're going to want to keep winning, or if they want to stay in that NCAA championship contention, that's going to be a big one for those teams because 3 of the 4 are in contention. Then you got the Osprey Invitational, University of North Florida making a punch this last week and going strong and pushing into the top 20. I believe it's their highest ranking in program history. I have to check that. But also they will have FIU there, and that should be interesting because FIU, the biggest mover of the week, going up to 14, 13, depending which poll you're looking at. So with that, you guys are facing each other. What's TCU doing this week? I'm looking here and I did.
We're playing at home. We're playing Florida Gulf Coast, Corpus Christi, HCU, and I think that's it.
Okay, well, it's and that's being hosted on your campus, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then Pac-12 North is on Pac-12 now or Pac-12 networks? Do we know?
One of the Pac-12s.
I know it's on TV.
Yeah.
Because all of our games were moved up by an hour for TV scheduling purposes. So I know that it's on TV. I don't know which network, but I know it's Pac-12 in some scope, but I don't know which Pac-12.
Right. Now, is there any other news that I missed out on this week? I know that I kind of went through it quickly, and I know we're coming up in our time. We went 45 minutes instead of the 30, but I guess that's a good thing because we got a lot to talk about. I actually want to pose this to you guys. There literally is 2 weeks of the regular season here and then conference tournament. What's the vibe in all of your, I guess, locker rooms, so to speak, or on your stands, we'll say? Kate, go for it.
Our vibe, we haven't really changed much. I think once we get to the actual postseason of conference and nationals, it'll change a little bit more, but we're kind of just focusing on every weekend and trying not to think too far into the future. So once conference comes around, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more nervous and excited and jittery and all that. So yeah, we'll see what happens then.
Alana, how about in the Arizona locker room or beach, or is it Bear Down Beach?
Bear Down Beach. Yeah, there it is. No, our locker room, we're pretty positive. April is a lot of travel for us. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but we are going to Hawaii next week. So everyone's pretty pumped about that. Able to take the whole team, which is we're really grateful for that also. But yeah, just every week taking it as a challenge, taking it as an opportunity to get better and a chance to prove ourselves and better and go rise in the rankings and things like that. So we're pretty pumped to keep the season going, and hopefully we can extend it even farther this year.
Yeah, I was trying to hashtag more Alana Rennie to see if I can get that trending, because you've been killing it with that record. So
Thank you.
how about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited. And I think the vibe with us is that we're really, really in nose to the grindstone mode. We're just looking forward, but also very much like body in the present. And so it's like, I think a big motto that we always follow is like, be where your feet are, because of the fact that if we get too caught up on what's to come, then we're not going to be able to focus on what's in the present. And so I think that that's kind of where we're at for now, is that we're focusing on what's in the present because we have so much stuff going on. But kind of flip with what Alana was saying, we're really grateful. I mean, we travel next week, but that's the only week in April that we travel. This is the first time that we aren't traveling for games of season so far this week, like where we have a full week at home. And so I'm really excited to not be on a plane this week. And in general, just excited to be able to show what we're made of on our own home sand this time for this month. I mean, I know that we go to LSU next week, so that's not really the full month, but at the end of the day, it's enough of the month to where it matters. So
Yeah. Well, episode 6 of College Volleyball Weekly, that is a wrap. That's Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford, Alana Rennie of Arizona, and Kate Privet of TCU. Good luck, ladies, this week. Looking forward to catching up with you next week.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.